All the names in this story are made up, for privacy reasons. Recently, I, 29F, was a bridesmaid in my friend Jen's, 30F, wedding, along with bridesmaid Ava and maid of honor, Cece. Jen and I have been friends for many years, and she is usually pretty chill. Although she does have tendencies towards being a perfectionist, so I more or less knew to expect this multiplied by at least 10 leading up to the wedding. There was a lot to do and organize, and the other bridesmaids and I helped as much as we could. Somehow the detail of our dresses got left for last minute. By last minute for bridesmaid dresses, I mean 3 months. During one of our bridal party lunches we took turns to organize for the wedding planning. Jen handed out swatches and said that our dresses must be in that color. Simply put, the color was ugly and unflattering. Ava agreed. Cece looked unhappy, but said she was okay with the color. Jen brusquely said that as this was to be her only wedding, she expected us to go along with what she wanted. She said that was the end of discussion, and moved on to the next item on the agenda. The bridesmaids had a couple of shopping sessions together, one at a mall and one online. We couldn't find anything in that color and floor length that we would even consider. On several occasions, each of us tried to talk to Jen and get her to change her mind. We found several other options that would go better with the theme of the wedding, but Jen dismissed them all. We couldn't see any other reason for this, other than that Jen was trying to make us all look bad on purpose. I get that she wants to look the best on her wedding day, but she is the bride. She will stand out no matter what anyone else wears. As long as nobody else wears a huge, white, pearl-encrusted wedding gown with a 6-foot train. I brought up the idea of us simply buying dresses in a different color anyway, and when we showed up for the wedding, it would be too late to do anything about it. Cece was against this idea, and for once voiced her opinion strongly. So I let it drop. However, later that night, Ava texted me separately, and we started conspiring. We decided to send Cece and Jen screenshots of dresses in the color Jen wanted, but secretly ordered dresses in another color we both liked. Fast forward to the wedding day. When we put on our dresses, Jen absolutely lost her mind. She started yelling and crying, and Cece had to escort her out of the room. I did feel bad, but I really thought that once she saw us in the dresses, she would realize the color choice was better. And Cece being in a different color was okay, since she was the maid of honor. We made sure the color we picked went both with the theme and with Cece's dress. After about 45 minutes, Jen and Cece came back. Although Jen didn't seem 100% okay, she had calmed down a lot, and the makeup artist could retouch her face. For the rest of the wedding, Ava and I made sure to cater to Jen's every whim. We really did everything in our power to give her the wedding day she had dreamed of. Not to mention all the time and money we had already spent on the prelude of the wedding. Bachelorette, bridal party lunches, dress fittings, etc., etc. It has been a few months since the wedding now, and Jen hasn't returned any of my texts or calls. Cece did text us both, calling us horrible friends, amongst other things. I think she is mostly upset at being the only one left in that horrible color. Jen's husband also texted us saying that we ruined the wedding, and that Jen almost canceled the whole thing on the spot. I still think Jen was wrong for purposely trying to make us look awful at her wedding. But AITA for not letting her get away with it? Hit the subscribe button now for more AITA dilemmas. Me, F28, and my fiancé, M30, just got married 2 months ago, and we had our dream wedding. Everything was perfect, and I mean everything. My parents and his parents helped us pay for a great chunk of the wedding so we would be debt-free, and we are so eternally grateful for that. The issue arose about a month and a half ago when my aunt started posting on Facebook about how disappointed she was with the whole ordeal, and a few guests sided with her. Background: my husband and I are huge Disney fans, and we travel to Disney World as much as we can throughout the year. Disney is such an important part not only to us, but also our marriage. The issue was with our decision to not offer catering services per bar services at our wedding due to routing the money towards having a wedding Minnie and Mickey make appearances at our special day. The cost to have both Minnie and Mickey for a good chunk of time, 30 minutes, was almost exactly what our parents allotted for our catering budget. So we scheduled an appearance during our first dance and our wedding photos, foregoing served food, though there were plenty of facilities at the venue where people could eat. My parents were still very supportive of us, but everyone else is being passive-aggressive about it on Facebook. AITA? Edit, info, to those asking if the guests were warned. We clearly outlined in the invitations that there was food available at the venue. We didn't exactly spell out every restaurant's menu, but it was certainly mentioned. There were also vending machines available throughout. Edit 2. Info. For everyone saying that it's too much for 30 minutes, I want to clarify. It was 2 30-minute sessions on different days. $2,750 was the cost for one session. Share your thoughts in the comments. Hit the subscribe button now for more AITA dilemmas. Hit the subscribe button now for more AITA dilemmas.
I, 24F, am getting married to my fiancé, 26M, in a few months. Both his parents are alive, while mine sadly passed away in a car accident when I was only 16. I have a half-sister, 34, let's call her Marie, from my dad's first marriage. We weren't very close during my childhood due to the age difference, and her mostly staying with her mother. However, after the death of my parents, Marie took me in. She has no kids of her own, but she really stepped up for me. I believe I was a pretty good teen, I kept up my grades, didn't get into too much trouble, etc. But I did have some trauma from my parents passing, and probably wasn't the easiest to deal with during my grieving stage. As I have no dad, brother or uncle to walk me down the aisle, I decided to ask Marie to do it. I thought this would be a good way to show her how much she means to me. She excitedly accepted. However, upon hearing about this arrangement, my fiancé's family was less than impressed. They said it is not traditional and almost obscene. My mind being made up, I shrugged off their objections. After all, it is my wedding, not theirs. A few days ago, my fiancé's parents invited us for dinner. During the dinner, my fiancé's dad brought out a jewelry box containing a necklace and held it open for me. He made a short speech about how he would soon be my father-in-law, and how I would then become as a daughter for him. Therefore, he had decided to walk me down the aisle. I was shocked and stunned, and couldn't think of what to say. He finished the speech by saying he would keep the necklace until the wedding day, and place it around my neck before walking me down the aisle. By this time, I had regained some of my senses, and started protesting that I had already asked my sister. They brushed me off, saying things like that my sister was already a bridesmaid, and that having a woman walking me down the aisle would imply that my mom was a lesbian. I looked over at my fiancé for support, but he stayed quiet. Later that night, I told my fiancé how I felt, and that I really want Marie to walk me down the aisle. At first he seemed understanding, if a little dismissive. But when I asked him to talk to his dad for me, he refused. As the discussion went on, he started saying that I should indulge his parents and let them have their way. According to him, this would allow for a smoother transition for me into their family. My argument is that Marie was basically a parent for me in my late teens, and it would make me feel closer to my dad on my wedding day. I wanted to give her this role in the wedding to show my appreciation. Besides, I already asked her. I feel so bad even thinking about withdrawing that offer. She was so excited to do it for me. But thinking about telling my fiancé's father I do not want him walking me down the aisle also makes me queasy. My fiancé says if I don't allow his dad to do this, his parents may decide not to attend the wedding. And that it is not only my big day, but also his. And he really wants his parents there. Although I haven't spoken to my sister, I feel sure she would attend even if I demote her to only being a bridesmaid. So am I the a-hole for insisting on having my sister walk me down the aisle?
Hit the subscribe button now for more AITA dilemmas. Hit the subscribe button now for more AITA dilemmas. My mother-in-law is very overbearing and likes to meddle in our lives. Both my SO and I wanted a small and intimate wedding, but Mills started spreading the word, and basically inviting people for us. The wedding was postponed because of COVID. I secretly thought this was great, as it gave me an excuse to replan a smaller wedding. However, I got pregnant, and Mills said I should postpone again to not be pregnant in the wedding pictures. I didn't want to at first, but as she kept insisting, I thought maybe it would be for the best. Maybe it would be too stressful to plan a wedding pregnant, there might be complications, etc. So the wedding was postponed a second time. Everything is getting more and more expensive. We already lost money on cancelled weddings, and now the additional financial responsibility of a baby. SO and I agreed that now, if ever, was the time to make the wedding a small and intimate affair. Mill, of course, disagreed, and started hijacking the wedding planning. To be clear, she isn't paying for anything, not even the piano player, a friend of hers, whom Mill booked to play us down the aisle. I got really annoyed, and convinced SO to go away for a long weekend and get married in secret. Just him, our beautiful baby daughter, and I. We had a wonderful wedding in Hawaii, and enjoyed the beach, the sea, and each other's company. We saved a lot of money on not inviting any guests, and on combining the wedding with the honeymoon. This money can go into our daughter's college fund. As you can guess, Mill was furious when she found out. She is now slowly working on turning the whole family against me. My own family is a little more understanding, but still somewhat upset that I cheated them out of the wedding they had been looking forward to for years. So AITA for convincing my SO to get married in secret? Hit the subscribe button now for more AITA dilemmas. I, 31F, used to date Mike, 36M, for about 5 years. We got engaged 2 years ago, and our wedding was supposed to be last year. About 2 months before the wedding, Mike suddenly got cold feet and pulled out of the wedding. I asked him if he was seeing someone else, but he said no. His explanation was that he had changed his mind about settling down. He said he no longer wanted the married life, house, family, etc. I was totally shocked and taken aback. Up until then, it had seemed like we were completely on the same page. Instead, we broke up, and he moved away. I was heartbroken and couldn't understand what had happened. I haven't even been on a date since then, because I am still so confused. Last week, I get a wedding invitation for later this year. It was from my sister, 24F. The groom is Mike. I immediately called my sister to ask what the is going on. Long story short, her and Mike started dating the same week he broke up with me. She swears they weren't seeing each other before that, but I'm not sure I believe it. And now they are getting married. I said some pretty harsh things, including that I wouldn't set my foot at their wedding or in the same house as them ever in my life. I called my parents, sobbing on the phone, expecting support. But it turns out my parents knew Mike and my sister were dating, and didn't tell me. They told me I should be over Mike by now, and not to miss my only sister's wedding. But to be honest, I feel even more hurt and betrayed by them knowing, and it makes me want to go to the wedding even less. My best friend told me to go to the wedding with my head held high to show them, but I'm not sure I could handle it. A few other family members have since reached out to me, urging me to not hold a grudge and go to the wedding. AITA for refusing to go to my sister's wedding? Hit the subscribe button now for more AITA dilemmas. I, 27F, have a sister, 23, who got married last month. Her husband is cool, but his parents and extended family are super religious. My sister still lived at home, and after the wedding she moved into her husband's house, which is owned by his parents. The groom's parents are wealthy and have paid for most of the wedding too. That's the background. So, here's the problem. I was the maid of honor, appointed by the mill. I have pink and blue hair, a few facial piercings, and several tattoos, including a full sleeve. Mill insisted that I dye my hair brown and grow it out to an even shoulder length, take out all my piercings and cover up the holes, and remove all my tattoos with laser. I also wasn't allowed to even mention, let alone bring, my girlfriend of 5 years. I said absolutely not, and I would rather not attend the wedding. My sister begged me to comply, and says she needed me there for moral support on the day. I was debating forth and back with my girlfriend and my mom, but the day before the wedding my sister sent me a long text asking me to please be there for her. I love my sister, so I dyed my hair with some black hair dye I had at home. I took out most of my piercings, some won't come out, and covered up the visible tattoos as best I could. The maid of honor dress I had been given was pretty modest, so it wasn't too hard. I turned up at my parents' house where my sister was getting ready with all the other bridesmaids, and at first she was happy to see me, hugging me, telling me how glad she was I'd made it. Then Mill turned up and all broke loose. She was yelling and shouting, red-faced with popping veins. My sister was crying. My mom was crying. The other bridesmaids mostly looked scared. I tried to defend myself by saying I'd done my best to tone down my looks. But she was howling that I looked like a demon straight out of and that covering up my tattoos meant nothing since you can't cover up sin. As nobody seemed to want to come to my defense, I simply left. Now everyone, including my sister, is blaming me for ruining the wedding. I think I did my best to compromise with the ridiculous requests that were made. AITA for showing up to my sister's wedding? Hit the subscribe button now for more AITA dilemmas.
I'm sorry that this is kind of long, but there are a lot of important details. I am 22, am from the UK. I met my GF 2 years ago, when we were both in the final year at uni. She was here on a student visa, and shortly after graduation, she entered a graduate scheme with a visa sponsorship. I also got a job, and we moved in together. The company she worked for got into financial trouble, laid off a lot of staff, and cancelled the graduate scheme. This meant she no longer had sponsorship for her visa, and needed to find another job, or return to her home country. She has been looking, but it's not easy to get a job with a sponsorship. She was spending a lot of time looking for jobs, going to interviews, etc., and I could see she was getting stressed and tired. When I got home from work, she was still on her computer, typing cover letters and scouring job sites. After a long day at the office, I wanted to have dinner and cuddle up with a film. But of course I understood, and I tried to help her as much as I could. One day I was out with a couple of friends from work, and one of them suggested I marry her so she could stay. We all laughed about it, but it got me thinking. I looked into it, and we didn't meet the requirements for an unmarried partner visa. However, the requirements for a married partner visa are more lenient, so I broached the subject to her. At first she was reluctant, which I had expected. It probably wasn't her dream proposal, nor was it mine, truth to be told. At the same time, I could clearly see a life with her, and a proper proposal and marriage maybe 5-6 years down the line. So why not now? In the end she agreed that it would be the best option, if she couldn't get a sponsored visa through work. She continued looking, but less fervently. Things went back to normal, and our relationship got back on track. The problem started when I told my parents about our plan. They were not happy. They called it a marriage of convenience, which it was not. I truly am in love with her, and I want to spend my life with her. I explained this to them, but they still said it was a bad idea. My parents are sort of middle class, but my grandparents are pretty rich. My mum said if we get divorced, my GF can claim half the inheritance, etc. I didn't think she would ever do something like that, but in the UK, prenups aren't legally binding. Anyway, this wasn't really the main reason, but as we got closer to the date, I started to get cold feet. Getting married in a dingy registry office with only 2 witnesses, at the age of 22. No real proposal, no big wedding, and my family dead set against it. Honestly, my GF's parents weren't super thrilled about the idea either, but at least didn't seem to object too much. So about a month before our date at the registry office, I sat my GF down and had a hard talk with her. I told her I couldn't go through with it. Some crying was involved, on both parts. But I thought she understood. After all, she was more hesitant than me at first. I dropped her off at the airport just over a month ago, and immediately after she went total radio silence. I'm trying to make this as short as possible, so the end is. I finally spoke to her a couple of days ago, and she said the reason she hasn't been responding is that she doesn't want to be with me anymore. She doesn't trust me, and she doesn't think I love her. She said it was a move to pull a flip and switch on her last minute. Which I understand, but at the same time, I'm willing to work on this long distance. Maybe she can come back in a couple of years. I told her I could come and visit her. I had already looked up tickets and was willing to fly out as soon as possible. She said there's no point, there is no future for us after what I did. So, AITA for pulling out of the wedding last minute, so my GF couldn't stay in the country. AITA for forcing my girlfriend to leave the country by bailing on the wedding.
Hit the subscribe button now for more AITA dilemmas.